camera overlay that watches you through the camera and always makes sure that you're looking at the camera. So like it'll take the color of your eyes, it'll create a little eyeball overlay, and then you always look at the camera. It's creepy. It's really creepy.
That is terrifying. I've got the tracking camera in my office and it follows me around, but I have to turn it off or else I get seasick. So
yeah, no, it's not a mechanized thing that follows you around. It layers over on the video your eyeballs staring at the camera.
Oh, so it looks like you're making eye contact the whole time.
It looks like you're always making eye contact with the camera, and it even blinks for you. It's creepy.
I need it because then I could look at my phone the whole time I'm on a call.
And everybody thinks you're paying attention. You know what?
It's just like the new digital version of those glasses with the eyes open. So it's like they're really just sleeping.
I was going to say the cut in half ping pong balls with the Sharpied eyeballs on them.
Yeah. Early in the pandemic, my high school senior taught me the trick about recording a looped video of you on camera, nodding your head and kind of, reacting, and then just put it on loop for an online high school class on Zoom and just walk away. And I just felt like, that I feel like our future is safe with the next generation with that kind of move. I was very impressed.
So all of us worked at this company called WWT in a previous life. And what? We all did what? That's not a big deal. And I started at the very beginning of the pandemic. I literally started on March 20th of 2020. I got hired, the pandemic happened, lockdown, and then they're like, hey, welcome to the team, Chris. And so I didn't meet anybody from the team until 2 years into my tenure there. At one point, I did a recording of myself coming in off camera.
Oh, wow.
Putting a cup of coffee down and then walking away. And then I made that video my background, so it looked like I walk up next to me, put down coffee in front of me. I would say, thank you. And then I would lift my coffee cup up.
Nice. That's fantastic. I love it.
Just find that video.
Do you have a twin, Chris? I'm like, no. Why do you ask?
Love it. Love it. That's fantastic.
I was terrible.
So we learned something during lockdown and the pandemic. After all, we all learned something. So that's great.
It's the friends we made along the way.
Exactly.
All right. Let's make sure that we are. Yeah. Okay. We are.
So the best thing that came out of the pandemic was that video, I Am Not a Cat, with the lawyer overlay.
Yes. That was awesome as well.
That's so funny. So
do you remember that, Tristan?
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Oh,
I'm going to have to Google it.
It was a lawyer who had, obviously all court proceedings were taken care of online. And a lawyer's kid had access to the family laptop and used one of the overlays and made them a cat. And the lawyer had to go to court and couldn't figure out how to turn off the overlay. So a kitten argued for the defense.
Okay.
And the guy was like, Your Honor, I'm not a cat. I'm actually a lawyer. And the judge was like, yes, I get that. I'm not really a cat, Your Honor. And it was an adorable, pathetic little weepy-eyed cat, like with little worry lines in his face. So the voice and the cat image both went along perfectly. It was amazing.
All right.
My NVIDIA-enabled webcam has the AI. Oh, it does. That's awesome. Okay, NVIDIA-enabled webcam has that AI eyeball feature.
Fantastic.
I got to figure that out because I have an NVIDIA card as well. So awesome. All right, well, folks, good evening. Howdy. It's been a little bit. We've all been either traveling or we had a couple of speakers defer for later dates. So we are back on at our regularly scheduled time. This evening, we have vVols and your cloud operating model with Pure Storage Solutions Architect, Tristan Todd. Tristan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Really, really happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about this because the cloud operating model is something that we've all been spending a lot of time talking about, working with customers about, and everything. So I want to see how this all ties in together. Before we get into it, though, get into a conversation. If you are in the live studio audience, obviously we will be listening to you on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, all the things, even Twitter. And if you aren't, we will be paying attention to the hashtags as well. So if you hashtag vBrownBag on all of the social medias, we will be listening there as well. Love to hear your questions and your comments for Tristan. Shala, how have you been? It's been a hot minute, hasn't it?
So first off, let's start with the fact that I keep thinking today is Thursday.
Yep.
And it's not. Yeah. It's been a couple of weeks, but I officially felt like a DevOps engineer.
Yeah. So you said you weren't even going to make it tonight, but then all of a sudden you said, yeah, I did this thing in Terraform, and all of a sudden you just knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, like it's getting kind of scary. Just permission things, but it's like there's permissions things, there's building some gateway things and APIs, and I don't know, it's kind of crazy.
Nothing that you can reveal because of the customer and their delicious food. Sean, it's been far too long since we've talked to you. What have you been up to? And your house looks gorgeous, by the way. Sean Doyle.
I can find the unmute button. You like my new house? I got a piano.
It is. It's gorgeous. The architecture is magnificent.
Thank you. I painted the inside of it too myself. It was quite hard, but yeah, I've been good. Just busy with all kinds of things and checking out. Speaking of NVIDIA, watched the GTC keynote. That was pretty impressive, and just keeping up with things. I actually read today. Speaking of keeping up with things, AWS released mutual TLS for their ALB. That was pretty interesting. I don't know if it was today or yesterday, but new house, tech news. This isn't really a new house.
So
totally
I was at GDC last week in San Francisco, and at the same time that GDC was happening, the Game Dev Conf, GTC was happening in the Moscone Center at the same time, I think. And so every person that you walked past was either GDC or GDC, and you're like, I'm sorry, which one? And everybody was confused about where the hell they were going, because they would ask for directions to GDC and be like, oh yeah, no, it's that one over there. And I actually did not run into Kyle Lindsay, another and actually he's still at WWT, but we've all worked with Kyle. He was there, and we were like ships passing because he was at GDC and I was at GDC, and we totally missed each other.
Can you imagine being the conference organizers or like event people trying to
somebody screwed up on that one. Yeah, somebody screwed up on that one.
Wow.
And how is our favorite AI cyber Sith? Oh, Dark Lord of AI Sithdom.
I'm doing great, actually. Thank you for asking. Right, it's been an interesting week for myself. I've been in a course for AI for business leaders, so I'm learning a lot more about artificial.
The one on Microsoft, the Microsoft Learn one.
No. Actually, it is through Ali K. Miller. Right. So she's an AI influencer on LinkedIn. So she had a course. I've been taking that course for the last 2 weeks. So
is it good?
It is exceptionally good.
Really? Okay. Send me the link for that. I've been trying to find some. I'm trying to collate some good AI material for like a new learning series.
I will send that out.
Cool. I appreciate that.
You're most welcome.
Tristan, I totally neglected to do this. If you want to click the little present button at the bottom,
sure,
that will tee up your screen to do your share. Okay. We flipped over to StreamYard like 3 episodes ago, and we're still trying to figure it out.
Okay,
Charlotte keeps clicking on the wrong buttons.
So you want me to put up
one time.
You made it put up a title slide?
Yeah, just present, set up your presentation, and then share it, and I will be able to then. So once you've shared it, then I can then bring it up into the room. Yeah, there you go. Exactly.
Okay, perfect.
So now we can flip flop, and there's yours.
Fantastic.
You're definitely going to want to minimize, that.
Perfect. Okay.
Oh, Claim Your Freedom is asking you to share that AI link here as well, Roger. If you want to pop that up.
Real quick, I also forgot to share that here in Houston, me and my family the other night got scared standing outside because we thought we saw something blow up in the sky, but it was SpaceX sending up Starlink satellites.
Oh, really?
Yes, we didn't know what was happening. It looked very weird. And then a ring of smoke happened and it like just disappeared. And we're just like, what is going on? But yeah, it was SpaceX.
And what did they do? They were doing a test fire, or they were launching something?
No, they were launching some more Starlink satellites. So the whole like their internet thing where you could get your internet from space, as well as it's going to do a lot for the Tesla auto driving and all that.
Huh, interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah. Because I had just watched Leave the World Behind, and I was just like, it's happening.
Every time we watch any of that end of the world stuff, and then something like a big noise happening, you're like, it's coming. All right, check me out.
If we see a bunch of Teslas all driving themselves into a big pile, then we know that Leave the World Behind is becoming a reality. It's happening. That was a terrifying scene, to be honest.
I haven't seen that one yet. Which streaming services Leave the World Behind on?
Netflix.
It's on Netflix.
Is it good?
Yes.
I haven't seen it.
Thought so. I thought it was good. It's not like one of those like, oh my God, you got to see this movie. But if you're looking for something to watch one day, one night, it's definitely worth the watch.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll definitely check it out. All right. Why don't we talk about vVols and your cloud operating model? since that's what we're all here for. Tristan, let us relinquish the power over to you and illuminate us.
Sure. And this is a topic that's kind of near and dear to my heart. I spent a lot of last year talking about virtual volumes, a feature that has been available in the kind of the vSphere product set for the last 6 years or so, and has been kind of, I don't want to say struggling to gain relevancy, but definitely struggling to gain adoption. Last year was a really big year for customers adopting the technology, and I think it's a very fascinating mechanism or capability that allows people to kind of move to more of a cloud operating model away from a traditional IaaS model. I hope it's okay to share a little bit about who I am and where I'm from. I'm based in Portland, Oregon, have been for the last 20-something years, former Coast Guard officer. I'm a field solution architect at Pure Storage, have been since 2022. And at Pure, I focus on virtualization and cloud integration. For that 10.5 years at VMware, and I've also spent time at Nutanix, Tegile, and Tentry, as well as Presidio. And I currently serve as the Portland vMUG leader. I'm a 6-time V expert, and I'm also a new program from a company called Control Up, a digital experience expert for this year. So
congratulations.
I don't know what it means to be DEXY, but I got an email the other day that said, congratulations, you're DEXY. So I thought it was kind of cool.
Did it come with a soundtrack? I'm too DEXY for my shirt.
It did not. It did not. But I heard there's a shirt coming, and I'm looking forward to what they have printed on that shirt. So they
better get creative with that. I mean, there's so many ways you can go with that.
That
there really are. All downhill, I'm sure. But I thought maybe I would talk a little bit about kind of legacy service models, a little bit about cloud service model, and then kind of talk a little bit about the attributes that make up a really good cloud service model, a little bit about how vVols fit, and then I'll touch on a few things that Pure is doing along these lines, if that makes sense. Sound good?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I like to call it, go ahead, I'm sorry.
I said, no, we're not. Let's talk about raccoons. No, this
Sure.
is your show. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So I like to call the old, kind of the old ways that we've served up infrastructure and services is kind of the old pain. I'll be really focusing on kind of the IaaS cloud service model today, really serving up infrastructure, whether it's on premises, in the public cloud, a blend of hybrid cloud. In the last 20 years of my career working with traditional infrastructure organizations, large enterprises, small enterprises, the struggle is largely the same. Process complexity is just kind of endemic. Lots of legacy systems, legacy processes, legacy apps. I remember I worked for an insurance company at one time, and I knew I had to leave when I heard myself answer a question from an app developer about why it took so long to deploy infrastructure, and why the approval process was so complex. Because I responded by saying, well, we've always done it that way. And I think I quit the next week when I heard myself utter those words. But really, we've built up traditional infrastructure and infrastructure processes to be complex beasts. Some of them very refined, but unfortunately, the refinement has led us to complexity. I think everybody aspires to be modular. Given a certain budget, given a certain business model, maybe acquire the infrastructure components that are best in class or ideally suited for the job. And what we're sometimes left with is a big collection of best in class or constantly refining best in class platform solutions that integrate really well if you stack them up in the right order, but really represent chaos when you have too many best in breed solutions that are kind of individual in the value they provide for a particular flow. So I like to put this picture up because it represents kind of the pain involved in managing all of these best in class entities. Kind of like if you had to walk across this pile of Legos at night, the pain that you would derive from that. If anybody's a parent, you've ever stood on a Lego, you know what I'm talking about. I think some of you are probably moving or have moved beyond the siloed infrastructure, the silos of infrastructure teams or fiefdoms or orgs, but we are still seeing, talking to 6 to 8 customers a day, I'm still talking to orgs that have an architecture team, a DevOps or a NoOps team, a storage team, a security team, a workspace team, and all of these silos ideally are working closely together, right? And chances are there's some tension between teams. They're vying for maybe a leadership role or supremacy in the decision-making process, or maybe they're competing for budget. So I think this holds a lot of traditional service models back, that just the siloed nature of organizations. Businesses want to move fast and increasingly want to move faster and faster. I think the fail fast mindset that technology success stories are based on has really moved into the world of business. And a lot of time traditional infrastructure teams and process structures are kind of too slow to keep up with the pace that business wants to operate. So what we've kind of arrived at in this, and this goes back to the complexity argument, is when a business org requests a service. In this case, this is just an example of the complexity of maybe a traditional on-prem storage request. All of these factors have to be evaluated manually. They have to be approved. They have to be handed off in a ticketing system from team to team, from approver to approver. And it takes large organizations, still to this day, some large successful organizations, they're mired in the complexity where it takes weeks potentially to stand up a simple service. I think scalability often is a one-dimensional kind of aspiration. Organizations that are really good at scaling up but not out, and obviously scaling up without the ability to scale out equally or as a response to a particular business initiative or flow or challenge. is problematic. Can you imagine living in an apartment in a building that was shaped like this? That had scaled up and not out? It'd be a little awkward, right? When you thought about, well, hey, I got to get out and walk the dog today. To me, this is terrifying.
Mm.
And finally,
Makes me think of Jenga.
I'm sorry.
Makes me think of Jenga, and then for the dog, we would need like the Jetsons treadmill.
There you go. I think this architecture only makes sense if flying cars or self-piloting aircraft are a reality. Jetsons is a really good reference. Costs, obviously, legacy costs, where lots of expensive services or expensive platforms are owned in a traditional way and are sitting idle for the bulk of the time, but are still incurring lots of lifecycle costs, lots of ownership costs, lots of depreciation costs. And I think this represents kind of, I don't want to say the dark ages, but certainly the pain of traditional infrastructure and traditional infrastructure service models. And I'd like to talk a little bit just about kind of what cloud service models are and what they aspire to be. But I'll pause to see if there's any questions or commentary.
Since the entire crew here has been in consulting, and we all worked at the same place for a minute. This is the pain that we have felt literally for added up decades. The provisioning cycle, data center, all of the things. You are speaking to exactly the right audience here.
So everybody's been in therapy and has spent time, or maybe still spending time in therapy, talking about these topics.
We got the scars. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Me as well. And I still live in it. Every day I talk to at least 3 or 4 shops that are kind of mired in that pain. Kind of a textbook definition of what a cloud operating model is. I lifted this from one of our peer documents, but really when you break it down, it's a flexible operating model, one that is really buoyed or based on choice of cloud, or maybe disregard for where something runs or is served up, or maybe how it's served up, and is really focused ultimately on critical service indicators, SLAs, key performance indicators that are business centric. Time to deploy a new service that supports the business, or time to add capacity that supports a business metric. And the tie-in between the IT capability, the IT outcome, if you will, and the business outcome, the mapping has to be direct, correct? That is my interpretation of what a good cloud operating model is, that everything you do when you serve up infrastructure, when you stand up services, is tied to what business value is being derived, so that you can trace not only the cost of those services to the financial benefit to the business, but you can tie those outcomes to perhaps a business mission or a business objective. So this is kind of the world that I live in, or I aspire to live in every day, is asking myself all the time when I look at a complex business process, can I map the tie-in between this archaic approval process and the time to, ship the next model of shoe from a footwear manufacturer or something like that? The cloud service experience really, the cloud service model is broken down into really 3 areas. Experience, where delivering service outcomes and assurances, and hopefully metered services and outcomes in the form of assurances is one of the critical capabilities. To do so without fixating on a particular architecture, particular platform, a particular cloud or service provider, really focus on those SLAs and critical service indicators, and ultimately flexibility in providing cloud services is key. From an operations perspective, highly automated and orchestrated processes, but with a self-service angle, so that a developer has access to maybe a set of APIs that they can invoke a service, or a a human being that is not a developer that needs a capability can go into a self-service portal and request a service, not in the language of geeks, but in the language of business. I have a important app. I need it to add to the portfolio. It needs to be the gold level of data protection, and it needs this security classification. I'll go into an example of that here in a bit. But then visibility of and control of the entire estate in the form of data that helps not only technology leaders, but also business leaders mine that data, leverage that data for business intelligence purposes. Smart decisions based on data is everybody's aspiration. But I think in invoking a cloud service model, this is a key capability, is everything needs to have data feeds, and hopefully those feeds be open and accessible. Automated placement, automated service instantiation obviously is key. You don't have time to manually go out and look for capacity or shop around for the best price. You want that to be an automated process if possible. And then obviously modern organizations typically are involved in periodic consumption bursts, whether it's seasonal, whether it's something that it's predictive or something that is you're reacting to. These are all key capabilities. And finally, the economic front, cost should be based on what you're consuming, not what you have deployed or what you have under contract. It should be based on what you're actually utilizing. The ability to actually see every cost element of your service chain is critical, because you make decisions, economic decisions, often on what is the most cost advantageous service, what is perhaps the most sustainable, and obviously from a comparison standpoint, trying to find out what is optimal. This is kind of increasingly an economic factor, but it's the risk associated with who is providing that service. If it is a third party, if it is a IaaS or a XaaS provider, a lot of the risk for standing up that service, operating that service, is borne by the provider, which changes kind of the dynamic for a traditional service delivery organization. And then finally, hopefully having those measurements in critical service indicators, KPIs, lets you not necessarily judge or focus on penalties, but hold that service provider accountable. Stand up a business SLA and then meter your service based on that, or pay or get discounts based on whether you met those success criteria or not. So I heard you guys talking about AWS a lot, and certainly everything in the AWS catalog has a measurement, right? Has a kind of a success indicator. So would you agree that's pretty important? Whatever you serve up, you've got a meter or a series of meters that judge like what is the quality of that service.
It's extraordinarily important. One of the things that we struggle with, honestly, with our customers is getting those SLAs to actually have teeth. Like if AWS falls over and then somebody's website goes down and they're hemorrhaging dollar bills, getting those SLAs honored in a monetary recoupable fashion is extraordinarily difficult.
Sure. Yeah, it's all about the T's and C's in that contract, or maybe the terms in that EULA that nobody reads.
Right, exactly.
And it's increasingly, as my company moves to a subscription operating model, all of our services moving to a subscription model, it's increasingly important that we focus on fairness and equity for our customers. When we don't do what we say we're going to do, we hold ourselves accountable, but we pass on perhaps discounts to our customers because we think that's a fair way to do business.
Yep.
I think everybody has a notional diagram of what a cloud operating model looks like. This is just an example of one, but where you break down, the abstraction of perhaps physical consumption of resources, the big three: compute, network, and storage, and you branch out to container services, virtual machine services, application delivery services, security, automation management. How do you ingest those services, present them, consume them? So this is just one example of a way to break it down. I think it's important whenever you think of a cloud operating model, you try to break it up into manageable pieces, depending on if it's application centric or it's infrastructure centric. So this is one of the examples that I really like that kind of helps me maybe look at each element in their own right, and not necessarily try to look at all of these things at once, but focus on, hey, if this is an application, is this something that we're actually building? Is this something that we're buying or leasing? And is this a container centric application service, or is this something that's virtual machine centric? Things like that. So, and if anybody likes these things, I'm going to make this content available after the stream today. So,
we're definitely going to throw this up on a slide share and have it available in the show notes so
fantastic.
that people can click through this and look at this. We also developed something similar to this when we're talking. So this, you're singing to the choir here. As soon as this came up, I was like, oh yes, I love this chart.
Yeah, and everybody loves a good service diagram or infrastructure ops diagram. Everybody's got one, and they're all awesome. I think I've seen some people that favor the dense. I like to break it down into kind of a layered approach. From my experience, a lot of organizations that have moved from single platform or private infrastructure have invoked or implemented something like a cloud management platform that handles things like costing and auditing and provisioning, scaling, all of the key things that you want to serve up when you're managing a set of cloud services. And I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, CMP platforms. It was a very competitive space. There was lots of different products out there. Cloud Bolt. I think Cisco had 3 or 4 of them. There was lots of them in the industry. I think the list has gotten smaller and smaller, but a lot of them do kind of the same thing. They provide a front end to manage lots of different layers. For example, it could be they front a lot of different automation and orchestration capabilities that can operate a lot of different platforms at the same time. And I've just listed some examples here. And then maybe also handle federation, access, implementation of, some of the major SaaS apps that we see out there in the world. So the way that I look at kind of cloud services in this layered approach, right? A nice front end that gives you that visibility into all the objects, all the services, what they cost, what their security attributes are, if you've got multi-tenancy requirements, breaking it up into a multi-tenancy model, and then obviously lots of observability, telemetry, reporting capabilities. So, but this is just the way that Tristan's brain kind of processes looking at a cloud service model in a layered format. So I never know what to call them. Tenants, 5 elements. I never know what word to use. So I just use the word tenant to describe kind of 5 considerations, 5 areas to focus on when you look at a good cloud ops model. Obviously, the costing element, in particular, the ability to visualize what services cost. In this case, what parallel or competing cloud platforms cost. Maybe you've got a Google Cloud, Azure, AWS Outpost, a little Oracle. You're running Snowflake, and you're trying to have a scoreboard that shows what your real time or what your periodic spend is. Maybe you want to see that graph on the upper right to see that your busiest time of year is April and June. But things get really slow in May from a budget perspective. I think this type of interface, obviously fed by real-time metrics and very granular metrics. And I'm gonna bring this conversation towards vVols here eventually. Don't doubt that. But this type of capability in a cloud operating model is really essential. Obviously, a cloud operating model where automation is front and center is key, because putting this archaic, just painful provisioning workflow up on the screen again. It's hard to look at this and hard to think about, taking weeks to deliver services. When logically, if you really studied this this workflow, this service workflow, using in this case, I just kind of took a cue from Hollywood and I storyboarded what implementing a infrastructure service might look like. In this case, it is deploying a virtual machine entity or a set of virtual machines, and the interactions, the decisions that have to be made along the way to actually invoke that service. What do you want to deploy? Where do you want to deploy it? What is the business classification? And breaking it up into the logical segments. And each of these storyboard elements, these shots or scenes, if you will, represents an opportunity to invoke some piece of automation to actually then render that service. Classic example is, if you asked a application owner the real questions about performance or data protection, and you gave them all the choices or all the decisions that have to be made when you assign performance or data protection services, it would be really, really complex. You would have a form that would be 4 or 5 pages in length. But if your organization came up with like a tiered approach, or for data protection, a gold, silver, bronze model, and you present that in a self-service workflow, maybe in a CMP, you're obviously going to have a more delighted consumer or requester, and probably a more efficient automated workflow. So I like the idea of doing what Hollywood does, which is takes a very complex storyline and break it up into very logical shots and scenes and storyboards. And hopefully that means that workflow is more automated, it's more efficient, it can be executed in much shorter timeframes. This is what we all aspire to, and hopefully a good cloud service model lends itself to. I can't talk about any topic, I don't think any of us can, in tech without talking about security. And it's a difficult topic because security, I think, means lots of different things to lots of different people, and it's hard to arrive on like a common understanding of like intrinsic security definitions and maybe like a zero trust security model. I actually really am fond of the US Office of OMB, Management and Budget. They have a really elegant document, and the link I will provide kind of at the end of the talk, at the end of this deck, that breaks down kind of how do you look at zero trust from a 5-element strategy, or 5-element approach. To me, there's a lot of proprietary zero trust models out there from people in the industry that are always kind of leading towards a product or service choice. And the Office of OMB model, I think, is really focused on the absolutes. I don't agree with everything our federal government in the US does, but I do like the OMB office and their breakdown of what foundational zero trust is. Does anybody have a model that they like more, that's more pure, that's not tainted by vendor or sales or marketing?
Why don't we ask our security specialist, Roger, aka AI CyberSeth?
I do like the cybersecurity and infrastructure security agencies model for zero trust. It's a little bit more simplistic than this, but I mean, it's still in what I would consider it's a little bit of infancy because of all the changes in things like artificial intelligence. It hasn't really been clearly defined just yet as a framework, but that's one that I would look at.
Outstanding. Yeah, I think obviously it's a constant involving just wave after wave of threats and threat vectors. But the whole precept of trusting nothing, trusting no one, absolutely distrust every service, every element in your infrastructure, I think is key. But I like that this whole foundation of zero trust, all the way at the bottom there, really governance, automation, visibility, and analytics, all of the things that lend themselves to a good cloud security model are the foundation for that zero trust security model. So I think they're all tied together, I think.
And that's the thing. I think the OMB is working with CISA for zero trust. So in some cases, in some ways, this actually may be a combination of the two, right?
Are you suggesting that the different branches of government are actually working together? The different
Wow.
orgs?
I will go out there on the limb and say yes, they are, but not really.
I mean, as a taxpayer that is just about to file my taxes, that makes me feel better. I might sleep better tonight.
Yeah, well, no, but I mean, if you've seen, I don't know if you've watched any of the, things on some of those, broad channels that they broadcast the actual interviews that they're doing in the Senate and stuff like that, and you just hear the back and forth, and it's like they go round and round, and it goes around in a circle, and then by the time they're done, they're like, "What was the question again?" So it really it's really going to be one of those things where it's going to take a little while for legislation and and regulatory compliance to really catch up.
Yeah. I'm just imagining a 2-day hearing, trying to break down what does device mean, right? Or what does edge mean, right? I can only imagine.
When you start talking about the AI conversation with them, that one was super funny. Just watching them go around going, well, artificial intelligence is going to take over the world, and well, we're not really sure that's going to happen, So let's build these frameworks around that.
There you go. I love it. I'm a data junkie. I love metrics. I love as many metrics in real time as possible. I lifted this from an ARIA operations dashboard from VMware, but just the ability to actually visualize in real time metrics for a platform, a service, and hopefully draw a relationship between these key metrics. Something in the application stack is slow, and here's all of the objects that make up maybe the network element or the storage element or the compute element to show where the hotspots are. So I think metrics and visualizing those metrics, maybe not in graphical form, but certainly a way to train a learning model to interpret those metrics, and the relationship between those metrics is key, especially as we operate at bigger and bigger scale with higher and higher velocities. Obviously, anything cloud native is predicated on the mindset that there is a service layer. There's an Esperanto, if you will, from a service language or a service interface on everything that you put into your IaaS framework. And hopefully it's API based, and hopefully it's open, hopefully it's well documented but secure. And I think this is a key attribute, is that when I talk to enterprises about moving to a cloud service model, I always like to talk about, well, what is your API strategy? Do you have a mandate? Everything that you bring into the portfolio or to the estate, does it have to pass a certain muster with regard to a common service bus, an API language? Do you always look at the API model for anything that you're considering bringing in-house, whether it's a SaaS app or a platform? So sounds like a lot of you have AWS, lots of AWS experience. So you know the criticality of APIs to AWS's success over the years. So.
Yeah, and just a comment. I mean, I totally agree about the metrics and data, like especially with cloud and just the proliferation of workloads across different platforms. So you have cloud, then you have platforms within cloud, you have applications within cloud, and just the volume of data coming in, and the disparate, there's some common formats, right? Most of it's JSON nowadays coming in, but just to be able to, it's interesting, like how people are so focused on the architecture, which is very critical, but without the metrics, like it ties into security, it ties into cost, it ties into all of the tenets that you've mentioned so far. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the tenets, right? I mean, to be able to analyze costs, to be able to see your security posture, and like where proactively and reactively, right? It all comes from that logging and metric data. I mean, sure, there's a little bit of humans in there, right? But
sure.
So
I like to think that anybody that makes a bold claim that says, I have a good app, or I have a good service, or I have a good platform, you always want to say, okay, well, how do you measure that? What is it? You say it's good, but what is that measured? What's the data points that prove that out? And how do I consume those? How do I consume that data? How do I ingest it? How do I bring it into Splunk, or how do I instrument it in Datadog or something like that?
Right.
So let's talk about vVols. I'm not going to get into a real deep dive on vVols. I recorded a brown bag at the VMware Explorer conference, a vBrown bag on the last day of the Explorer conference this year, where I really kind of dug deep on vVols. I'll talk about it really at a high level. I'll dig in a little bit, but I don't want to dig too deep today. vVols are a way for a storage provider. I work for a data service company where we provide physical arrays, we provide storage services in the clouds. And what vVols is all about is advertising to a large stack, a large IaaS stack like vSphere, large hypervisor environment, data service attributes and capabilities that are critical for an organization to complete a mission, or for a service to be viable or successful. For example, they have to advertise their presence. I am a vVols service provider. In this case, I'm a pure storage flash array. I can do quality of service. I can take snapshots. I can schedule those snapshots. I can replicate from and to different systems, and maybe 2 different locations. And I can tag the workflows. If you assign a policy, or if you place a workload on me, I can apply a service tag that you can use as the basis for automation. So the whole idea of vVols is a very different way to present data services to virtual machines and containers. In the olden days, when we served up capacity and performance, we would make a monolithically large LUN or volume, and we'd put hundreds of objects. Used to be all virtual machines. Now it's sometimes a mix of virtual machines and containers. And then any service, like a snapshot, like a replication, some kind of a data protection flow, you would have to assign it at that entire volume object. So everything that was placed in that volume was along for the ride. And that presents lots of problems, because it could be the nature of any one of those entities changes over the course of its life. Maybe you reclassify a workload from tier level, bronze level performance to silver or gold. And you don't necessarily want to have to relocate that data or that object to a different monolithic volume or LUN to get a different level of services. So what vVols has done in the vSphere stack is allow people to deploy virtual machines and containers where every storage element of that entity is its own volume and can be managed by a policy, a data service policy by name. So what VMware came up with 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago, is a built-in policy engine called Storage Policy-Based Management, or SPBM, where you can create a policy that has lots of different rule sets, placement rules, snapshot frequency rules, quality of service rules, and you could give it a human readable name like production gold 001, like I have in this example here, that dictates where the policy applies, how it is implemented as far as what tags are rendered, the frequency and direction of replication from different sites or maybe from different cloud types, and yet it is assigned at a virtual machine or container level such that an operator could say, this is a gold level app. That's the classification in our CMDB. Therefore, I apply the gold data service policy, and all of these elements apply to that VM. And then in the case of vSphere, compliance is checked on a regular basis, and any departure from compliance is flagged as kind of a critical service incident. This is a really key capability. This built-in automation and orchestration and data services consistency, I think, is something that not everyone in the world of large vSphere environments takes advantage of, but it's definitely something that we advocate for in the customers that are using Pure. because we think that built-in automation that applies to potentially thousands of objects to bring consistency to the services is key. The cool thing is you could take this policy assignment and you could change the policy assignment, and it is executed in real time to reapply a set of rules, so that if you have to relocate a workload, if you have to change a categorization, you can tell whether or not you're in alignment with an organization's requirements quickly. And these policy changes happen kind of instantly. We see a lot of legacy virtual machines and containers are built with a philosophy that everything that makes up a virtual machine or a container has to be the same, right? If you're a virtual machine or a container, you should always be, snapshotting every 2 hours or replicating every 4 hours. vVols affords us the ability to take a complicated virtual machine or container and break it down into its meaningful points, and then apply different data protection and quality of service policy based on each of the elements that make up, in this example, a virtual machine. You might data protect your OS volume different than your database volumes or your log volumes, for example. So the other thing that's really interesting about vVols, especially in the time in virtualization land when people are considering data mobility as key, the ability to take and port a virtual machine from one platform to another. Maybe you're not happy with vSphere and you want to move to Hyper-V, or you want to move a workload to a physical server or to a public cloud. vVols, and the fact that on the back end, they are just a data service volume, means that we can execute a snapshot and through data copy management, render a copy of that nearly instantly. We can attach that volume to another virtual machine, a bare metal server. In this case, we have the capability of attaching one of these volumes to like an Azure native VM or an EC2 instance in AWS without any translation. It is a volume. In this case, it's a block storage volume that we can very quickly replicate and attach to a different entity without having to refactor the virtual machine, translate, or migrate. We're just taking the data volume and we're attaching it to another entity. So this is something that really makes vVols attractive. It is not VMware lock-in. It's not vSphere lock-in. It actually provides a lot of mobility and extensibility. Telemetry in real time is really critical when it comes to data performance as well as capacity. With vVols, because each individual storage object and each individual data service object at a VM or container level it's a sole entity, it means that we can provide capacity metrics. On the right here, I've got a capacity graph that shows the different volumes representing a virtual machine and the data reduction benefit and the volume of capacity that's tied up in snapshot versus unique data. On the left, we're actually showing real-time telemetry at the individual virtual disk level, where you can actually see the I/O characteristics, the pattern of I/O consumption, of traffic, and the quality of that I/O. And to be able to do that at the individual virtual disk level rather than the monolithic LUN level is a game changer when it comes to understanding the quality of the platform, of the IaaS platform, and its ability to support good performance. vVols can be integrated into an existing environment. Customers or organizations that have long used something like VMFS or NFS, or they've moved on to virtual SAN. vVols is not something that is difficult to implement. It's not obtrusive. It's not hard to integrate. You can mix and match. So I think VMware has done a really masterful job of focusing on virtual volumes as a kind of a cutting edge technology, and it really is the future of storage in vSphere, but it marries well with legacy technologies, and you don't have to make a decision about, we're going to do vVols or VMFS and make it a binary decision. very easy to register a compliant storage provider, a vVols compliant storage provider in an existing large VMware environment, and then start advertising those services, and then building those policies, hopefully building simple policies to start and then ratchet up the complexity. So vVols, I think, are one of those things where we derive benefit and real outcomes because we're delivering data services not in a monolithic way, but we're delivering it in almost a microservice way. We're providing that real-time instrumentation, that individual unit of automation and orchestration that really lends itself well to the rest of a cloud service or delivery model. A little summary of what I talked about, breaking down experience, ops, and economics. This won't be on the quiz, but I wanted to leave you all with a summary. Some of the highlights, some of the things that I think we've all learned on this call or on this stream really are, eliminating those silos is key. Focusing on flexibility in everything that we do, avoiding those monolithic, hard to change platforms or services. Obviously understanding that the velocity of technology and IT helps businesses be faster. Self-service catalogs, self-service consumption models are key. Data, observability, telemetry, whatever buzzword you want to use about that, that massive volumes of data used for real-time or quick-time decisions is key. Don't care about where your applications or where your services are rendered as long as it's the most cost-effective and meets your performance and availability characteristics. And obviously, security is fundamental. And then lest we forget, there's always going to be that legacy application. Some people call them crap applications, but that thing that was written in a programming language that nobody understands anymore. We do have to respect that some of those applications are still going to live with us, and they will for quite some time. Mm-hmm. So vVols really, this is the lock, stock, and barrel of value of vVols. It's, it makes automation easier. It tends to change the way that data services are rendered. Really, everything about vVols is powerful when it comes to cloud service mapping or efficiency mapping. It is a core feature of vSphere that not every customer uses, and we always like to encourage people to use all of the capabilities that you're paying for. I don't think Broadcom is dropping the price of vSphere anytime soon, so let's unlock all of those features like vVols that we haven't been using for the last 10 years. Pure is a leader in the data service space. We are one of the #1 platforms. We're one of only 3 design partners that works with VMware on roadmap technologies. We've been a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for 10 years in the top right, and we've been the leader for the last 4 years. So we think that we've learned a thing or two since we came out of stealth back in 2008. We have a very simple portfolio. We have a Purity data service operating system that can run on physical equipment. It can run on the cloud of your choice. And we really have innovated a direct flash technology where we don't rely on commodity off-the-shelf SSD technologies. We effectively provide direct access to flash, and that matters at scale. And we also have a very good fixation on cloud native architectures, providing enterprise grade data services for Kubernetes environments and the like. And we've got lots of really interesting flexible consumption models that we've innovated on. I'm going to share this content, and these links here will be clickable. But some of the things I talked about, some of the references that I put on screen will be available. But I think some of them are really fascinating, and I think it's something that we should all kind of reflect on. If we haven't arrived at that cloud service operating model, we all stand to reflect and definitely learn about our own environments and those that we engage with. So with that, I thank you all for the opportunity. What do you think? I mean, is this compelling? vVols a technology that kind of fits with the cloud service narrative?
It absolutely does. I've been particularly quiet simply because I've lived, eat, and breathed in this space for decades. Well, cloud operating model hasn't been around for decades, but a decade. So yes, this absolutely does resonate. You know, having I break arguments and considerations like this down into the 4 food groups: networking, RAM storage, and networking, RAM storage, and CPU. And the data layer of the 4 food groups is the most maligned one. I would argue. People always forget about it until, like, as soon as you were talking about crap applications, I was flashing through every single large customer that I've been at where they're like, oh, we forgot about that thing. And you know, this avalanche of technical debt comes and just buries the entire project. So for me, this was all very resonant. This was excellent.
Yeah,
Cool.
it was the same part right there with the tech debt and all that. When you were speaking on that piece, I was getting triggered thinking about a company I was working for, and we had this piece of this homegrown application running on a laptop that was like at end of life, like the machine itself. But it was something you couldn't just like go and quickly rebuild. Oh my God. And we just had to keep that thing alive. It was crazy.
Yeah, I worked with actuarials at an insurance company, and one of our primary actuarials, he would do all of his actuarial runs on a tower PC that was under his desk. And there were a couple of problems with that. This guy used to like to spill lattes onto that tower on a regular basis, which represents, you know, availability risk. But all of his neighbors in the open office would complain because during an actuarial run, the hard drives on this tower would just scream the noise that this would put out. So we started to think maybe we should think about putting this important infrastructure in a data center, and maybe we could do something better than generate heat with old spinning disk. So we've come a long way, I think, in our mutual careers. But we still see so much pain caused by legacy thinking and legacy architectures.
Well, it's funny because so we have this like little side chat where all the V Brown Bag hosts talk and everything, and as you've been going through the presentation, we're like, I'm having PTSD flashbacks. This is giving me feelings. There's an interesting thing happening with the tech industry today, and we are uniquely in positions to see both the bleeding edge startups that are born in the cloud that have never purchased a single switch, and all of these large 100-year-old financial institutions that have a cradle modem that's still running baud 300 stuff to a place in Wyoming, and everything in between. So there's such a large chasm of tech. I mean, we still have like Fortran running on things that do the nuclear codes, and there's like 3 people on the planet that still remember Fortran. So this your talk is a both a callback to that and to like the way that we need to be thinking about this from an architectural standpoint, from an enterprise standpoint, and all of the nuances that people repeatedly forget. So
yeah. And Tristan, thank you also for bringing up the security component, because I think a lot of people still miss that in development for anything that we do. Security is usually the last thing that anyone wants to think about. And it's nice to see that it has its own little pillar in the model. But, bringing up zero trust, I mean, that's ideal to having those type of discussions. And more and more
has to be a topic during every conversation.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Every time that we talk about any subject, there's always got to be a security element, because the risks, the threats are out there. One of the links that I have in the content that I hope people click on is the graphic that shows, it's by a company called Data is Beautiful, and it's a chronological view of the size and volume of breaches, and it's a visualization that shows like 2003 to the present. Just the sheer size and volume of the major breaches that have been reported. And the average breach in the US right now, I think it's reported to cost nearly $10 million per major incident that involves a PII. I think worldwide, the average is around 4 million, but that is a wake-up call for all of us that we need to take security in all that we do really seriously.
Yes.
I don't know how much, I don't know if you guys have an identity guard on your own, that guards your own life and your own data, but I think every day I get a notification from my provider that, hey, your information is available on the dark web.
Yep.
Really? Yep. Again? So
it's at
the
least,
day that I don't get that alert
quarterly
is when I panic.
It's at least quarterly that I get some letter in the mail that says, we regret to inform you that your data has been leaked in some breach, and here's a free year of some kind of identity service.
Exactly.
So
exactly. We should never have to pay for that service because you can just surf like Marriott breach to United Airlines breach to AT&T breach.
AT&T breach. Yeah, I think I have like 7 running simultaneously right now.
And you can't stack those either, right? It's not like you can hold them and go, okay, I'm going to use yours for this year and use yours for the next year. It's just
it'd be good if those codes were good for longer than the 4 weeks or whatever they give them. So that's fun.
And it's only going to get worse too with AI related threats. I mean, it's just getting better. They're getting better and better. So we're in for a interesting ride in the next year, 2 years, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's definitely changing all of our lives as far as just not only personally our data, being out there and being leveraged for, in some cases, political warfare, but also every organization that we talk to has data that is sensitive or is business critical, and it has a direct tie to the success of that organization, whether it's a government or an education or even an enterprise. That data is the most valuable commodity they have in the portfolio.
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah, we take it very seriously. We try to, everything that we do, everything that we engineer, we try to think about what data problem, what security problem we can solve with that data or that service.
Completely unrelated, the V Brown Bag crew is getting off the internet and starting a solar-powered commune in Wyoming.
I love it.
Tris, you're more than welcome to join us as long as you bring some medical experience. That's the only thing that we're missing.
I can suture. I can suture external wounds.
You're in.
All right.
I'm pre-med.
Hey, there you go.
Well, you were in anyway, Shala. You're fine.
That's
But
fantastic.
it also makes me think where I'm always constantly telling people when they're just like, oh yeah, this app is great and I can't believe it's free. And I'm like, it's not, you're the price. Like,
There's a reason you're getting all those great deals on Temu.
Hey, there you go.
Nobody reads the agreements. Nobody reads the fine print. Never. I've yet to see anybody read the EULA and go, "Oh, I can't believe they're going to share my information." Did you read the EULA?
My brother-in-law uses Temu for everything. He buys all this crap for his house, and like every now and then they're like, he'll be missing like a cent or two. Like, what's this 1 cent charge? I'm like, I warned him. Warned him.
Start rounding up every time you make a purchase.
There's going to be 7,000 Jesse Tates applying for credit cards coming out of China in the next year.
Right.
All right. On that note, Tristan Todd, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Folks, have a wonderful evening. We will see you all again next week. Will we see you all again next week? We'll see you all again next week.
Yeah.
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 We'll see what happens. We'll make something happen. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you all then. Bye.
Thanks so much.